Namaskar. Welcome to the episode on Business of Ecotourism. Ecotourism initiatives may provide benefits to all the stakeholders of the thriving tourism industry. Of late, the main thrust has been upon the pro-poor tourism approach. Community-based tourism initiatives provide scope for local community involvement. At this juncture, this is very essential to sustain the ecotourism. As you know that the ecotourism business is entirely different from that of other types of tourism. In this episode, let us try to explain the business of ecotourism. The main objective of learning has been presented under 5 broad categories. They are as follows: recreation typology, basic principles and business of ecotourism, importance of ecological concerns, ecotourism opportunity spectrum and notable business strategies, and finally, methodologies for evolving sustainable tourism strategies. Coming to the introduction. Tourism business is often considered as interested only in the profit maximization. Cultural, social and economic benefits will only occur when ecotourism generates sufficient profit. Ecotourism is likely to achieve its goal of ecological sustainability only if it can prove its financial sustainability. Yet, the business considerations of ecotourism are not receiving adequate attention. Ecotourism has experienced rapid growth with an annual growth between 10 to 30%. It appears that the economic benefits that can occur from ecotourism appears to be the primary motivation for some nations. In other cases, nations appear to accept the development of ecotourism as a result of exogenous market pressures. Recreation typology. Mass tourism or traditional tourism generally refers to the big conglomerates or tourist resorts in the world, where the tourist companies are big transnational corporations where one expects the same type of service and facilities. In response to the negative impacts of mass tourism, a counterpart has arisen, hence its name alternative tourism. It is a tourism that gives emphasis to the contact and understanding between the host and the tourist as well as the environment. Other characteristics of alternative tourism are smaller impacts in the natural and social environments, links with other sectors, agriculture, craft of the local economy, and retention of earning in this region. Although it is a concept many times criticized, it helps us to understand that the experience sought by the tourist are changing. Government institutions use this concept very often incorrectly. This concept is still useful as an alternative to ecologically non-sustainable mass tourism. Principles of sustainable tourism. The principles of sustainable tourism, ST, have been widely adopted by the tourism industry. Many sustainable tourism initiatives include constructive pro-poor elements. Pro-poor tourism, PPT, is tourism that results in increased net benefits for poor people. PPT is not a specific product or niche sector, but an approach to tourism development and management. It enhances the linkages between tourism businesses and poor people, so that tourism's contribution to poverty reduction is increased and poor people are able to participate more effectively in product development. However, ST focuses mainly on mainstream destinations, which are mainly in the north, while PPT focuses on the south where the poor are. In ST, environmental concerns dominate. Social or local benefits are usually one of several elements of sustainability. Poverty guidance is often weak. Certifying energy efficiency is easier than certifying community relations. Ecotourism initiatives may provide benefits to people, but they are mainly concerned with the environment. Conservation approaches emphasize the need for broadly distributed local benefits, often cash, as incentives for conservation, or they may support activities that provide an alternative to unsustainable actions. Community-based tourism (CBT) initiatives aim to increase local people's involvement in tourism. Thus, CBT is an integrated approach to tourism that incorporates attention to the environmental, social, cultural and economic impacts of tourism. In popular language, this might be called politically correct tourism. Tourism that sustains or enhances the geographical character of a place, its environment, culture, aesthetics, heritage and the well-being of its residents is termed geotourism. Thus, it may be considered as a synonym for ET. The adventure travel offers opportunities in which participants return more experienced and pursue extended scales of adventurous endeavor. What distinguishes those adventure travel activities from those of outcome often referred to as adventure, where an individual often faces increasing levels of risk or personal threat? Low cost, low budget or backpack tourism reached a new popularity in the late 1960s and early 1970s, when discount airfares and surplus backpacks made travel possible for a lot of young people and for others still young at heart. Low impact tourism is an effort to correct the mistakes of the low budget traveler. Closely related to low impact travel is the idea of living lightly or reducing the impact or footprint one's lifestyle leaves on the planet. Basic principles and business of ecotourism. The ecotourism business is entirely different from that of other types of tourism. There are several interrelated reasons for high expectations of the ecotourist. The proliferation of wildlife documentaries on cable television, the explosion of theme parks with animal motifs, media publicity, etc. As a result, ecotourists have become even more demanding, looking for increasingly specialized guides and personalized services. They are willing to spend money, but want even better value for their dollar and are not afraid to book directly with tour providers, cutting out the middleman in the process. Hence, to be sustainable, ET has to focus more on local, natural and cultural resources and needs special innovative marketing skills. Certainly, operators and guides are feeling enormous pressure to produce wildlife for their clients. A satisfied customer is one whose expectations are realized. Guides are pressured pretty hard by guests in the field to get even closer to wildlife, even if doing so violates accepted wildlife viewing ethics. It is imperative that only those areas which are suitable for ecotourism be developed, and those ecotourism criteria are matched with the resource-based characteristics of the region. Once begun, ecotourism, like any other form of tourism, requires management. Unfortunately, just like other forms of tourism, ecotourism generates impacts that require management. But more often, these are conveniently ignored by the promoters and governments. Ecotourism, more than any other form of tourism, is dependent upon the quality of the environment. Hence, extra care needs to be taken by managers and developers of ecotourism destinations to ensure that the impacts from the activity are controlled and minimized. As well, The amount of use is a critical parameter for ecotourism as for any form of tourism. Two key issues interrelate here. One is the problem of maintaining the quality and ecological integrity of the resource base in which ecotourism is being undertaken. To ensure the maintenance of the resource for its own sake and to ensure that it remains attractive to tourists and to other users also, including of course local residents. The second is the problem of maintaining the quality of the recreation experience for the ecotourists themselves, which is based not only on the quality of the natural environment but also on the levels and nature of the interaction between groups of users. Key factors. The key factors which affect the quality of the experience for the user include the number and type of other users encountered as well as the expectations and experience of the users themselves. Initially, the solution to these problems were sought in the concept of carrying capacity, that is, placing a limit on the number of users who would be allowed access to a resource at or below the level at which they would create irreparable damage to the resource. It became accepted quickly, however, that the concept of carrying capacity in recreational and tourist contexts was not as simple as initially thought. Stemming from this came the logical conclusion that the way in which the resource was managed was of at least equal significance to above factors. Thus, by the middle 1980s, the concept of the carrying capacity had moved from one of finding optimal numbers of users to one involving the management of resources, user expectations and preferences, and physical parameters of the resource. Central to all of the issues is agreement over management of the resource and the user in the absence of control on levels, type and time of use in particular. Overuse, misuse and abuse of the resource are likely to occur over time. If such problems continue, then the resource is likely to suffer irreparable damage and ecological integrity will be threatened. Control therefore becomes a key issue. In the context of parks and declared reserves, this remains an issue with regard to level of intervention, planning procedures, monitoring and enforcement, but the idea of control is normally accepted and established. Limits of acceptable change (LAC) approach. One attempt to solve the problems of identifying minimum use levels was the limits of acceptable change (LAC) approach. The LAC concept places an emphasis on positive or proactive planning and management, preempting inappropriate or overuse, thus avoiding the need for remedial or reactive management actions. However, it places a considerable responsibility on managers with no guarantee that managerial values and decision will be in line with user preferences, particularly as both of these elements are dynamic. Two other management concepts with some relevance to ecotourism areas is the Visitor Activity Management Process (VAMP) and the Visitor Impact Management Process (VIMP). Ecotourism Opportunity Spectrum (ECOS). The Ecotourism Opportunity Spectrum (ECOS) model was developed to provide a conceptual management approach for ecotourism destinations. But it is acknowledged that this approach is evolutionary rather than revolutionary. It is composed of the following factors viewed as important to ecotourism: accessibility, relationship between ecotourism and other resource uses, attractions in a region, presence of existing tourism infrastructure, level of user skill and knowledge required, level of social interaction, degree of acceptance of impacts and control over level of use. The first 7 factors are set against a spectrum of ecotourism opportunities, which ranges from eco-specialist to eco-generalist. Importance of ecological concerns. The tourism and recreation industry is confronted with serious and difficult choices about its future. The decisions made now will not only affect the local habitats and ecosystems, but also the lifestyles and economic opportunity of residents in tourism destination areas. Many of these decisions are irreversible because once habitats or ecosystems or communities lose their character, they have lost their ability to vie for tourist-based income in an increasingly global and competitive marketplace. Worldwide, tourism is undergoing fundamental change from the experiences and settings travelers demands to the regulations governments impose to protect the environment. This transformation of demand and values leaves the industry with no alternative other than to pursue a different yet difficult course, one that builds upon the key questions of purpose, objectives, values and strategies. Sustainability definitions also frequently refer to intra and intergenerational equity and option maintenance. The tourism industry receives substantive criticism about the distribution of jobs and income. While job quality encompasses more than wages and monetary benefits, inequities in income are a major concern that residents hold about tourism development. Sustainable tourism allows visitors to enjoy an attraction, community or region with a volume and impact in such a way that the local culture and environment are unimpaired. Hunt, in 1993, argued that the tourism industry should care both for visitors and for the places they visit, the communities in which we live. Sustainability has to be viewed as more than physical commodities from natural ecosystems. It is well known that environment is the travel industry's base product. It is rarely respected by the tourism promoters. Now, next coming to opportunity spectrum and business strategies. Support conservation of natural resources, be environmentally sensitive, be culturally sensitive. There are many challenges facing the dedicated ecotourism business community. Notable among them are small group sizes of ecotourists versus financial viability, seasonality issues, higher per capita marketing cost, inbuilt volatility in the marketplace, and miscellaneous factors such as the extra care needed to ensure environmental and socio-economic sustainability that drive up their cost and consequently their prices. Solutions lie in evolving successful business plans that include innovative marketing techniques and targeting products at market segments that are large enough to be profitable. In a nutshell, we have to adopt strategic marketing that involves a critical focus on products, markets and competitors. This is essential for positioning and targeting so that the scant resources are optimally used for financial viability. A true recipe for failure would be to assume that any business to be more successful must compete with all other tourism businesses everywhere. Moving on to evolving ecologically sustainable tourism strategies. For evolving sustainable tourism strategies, let us adapt the following appropriate environmental or socio-economic strategies both for prevention as well as post-impact management. Controlling the human numbers or activities or impacts within the regular absorbing or carrying capacities and sustainability so that stability, resilience and diversity of the ecosystem are not irreversibly affected. Working towards self-sufficiency to meet the local needs. Conserving the vitality and diversity of the life-supporting systems, shaping water or nutrient cycles and climate by an integrated approach. Sustainable exploitation of biodiversity in general and renewable resources in particular. Evolving specialized management strategies for common property resources. Changing personal attitudes and practices in tune with cultural diversity and the locally available natural resources. Environmental education or legislation for maintenance of environmental quality or health standards. Providing adequate and reliable power supply on a sustainable basis. Development of adequate road and other environment-friendly transportation systems in order to prevent traffic congestion, thus maximizing the use of mass transit in pedestrian or cyclist systems. Provision of open space and parks and generous use of suitable landscaping on hotel and resort sites. Application of land use planning or zoning for water also, regulations with suitable development standards and good site planning principles in tourism areas, example control of visual pollution, prevention of linear development along road or shoreline. Careful management of visitor flows and where necessary application of visitor use controls. Application of appropriate architectural design standards for environmental or energy conservation using locally available natural resources. Proper maintenance of tourist vehicles for energy conservation and pollution control, noise or air, use of electrical cars or vehicles or boats wherever possible or necessary. Control measures on ship bilge, cleaning operations and dumping of solid waste into waterways during navigation. Establishment of controls on collection of live specimens, rare, beautiful, etc., spearfishing, mining of beach sand, use of boat anchors in coral bottom bays, cutting of trees in camping and trekking areas, feeding of wild animals will induce behavioral changes. Miscellaneous control measures. Proper site planning, design and engineering of hotels and other tourist facilities to minimize damage from environmental hazards like earthquakes, tsunamis, flooding, erosion and landslides. Sharpening political and administrative integrity to solve the sectoral or policy conflicts by optimal trade-offs for enhancing both individual and community benefits.